Aye.
Are you guys all excited to talk about where your bill is at in the process?
Yes.
All right. So this morning it's just me. Shelly is not feeling well today, so I'm just going to give you guys an update of where we're at with your bill, and then talk a little bit about what's happening in Olympia at the legislature. We, at the end of this week, are going to be halfway through the legislative session. We told you guys last week that it's a 60-day short session, which means that legislators are doing their work really quick this year, and that they have less time to get bills through each of the committees and working through the process in order to become law. So things have been pretty busy in Olympia, and as of the end of the week, a lot of bills are going to stop being considered because they didn't pass out of committee in time. So I am excited to tell you a little bit about your bill and how it's going to be changing and moving through the process in a unique way after this week, given that it has to do with money. So to get started, I think I'll show you guys where we're at on the bill in terms of within the legislative website. So we'll go to the website now, and give me just a minute here. Just a second here. Can you all see the screen?
No.
Yes, you can.
You'll see it in just a minute.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what we're looking at is the main legislative webpage. It's leg.wa.gov. So Shelly and I went over that with you all last week. And this is where you go when you want to find anything out about what's happening in Olympia, what bills are being considered, and it's a really good tool to see what's happening with your legislators in Washington State. So once you go to that main page, then you'll go to the right-hand side of the page where it says bills, and you'll click on the word bills. And do you all remember what bill number we're working on this year?
House Bill 2417.
Perfect. So we're going to type in 2417 and hit start. That is the webpage that talks all about your bill. So you'll remember that our bill sponsor, the representative that's working on it, is Representative Blake, listed there at the top with the cursor. And you can see that the bill has to do with orca recovery. And that's the bill title there that we're highlighting for you. And then if you scroll down the page, you can see where the bill is at in the process. So a little bit has changed since we have last spoken. So I think we talked on the 17th of January, and the bill has gone through 2 next steps. So I'm excited to tell you about what's happened. So the day before we first met was a public hearing on the bill. So individuals from all across the state came and participated by talking about what they liked about the bill. Now what's good is that Shelly and I went back and we were able to see that everybody really liked the fact that the legislature was considering a step to try and save the orca population. Does anybody remember how many orcas there are currently out in our area in the water?
76.
How many?
76.
Yes, that is not a lot. And over the last 3 decades or 30 years, those numbers have continued to decrease. But what's happening is that at the federal level, at the federal government, which we explained 2 weeks ago, and internationally with Canada that is located right above Washington State, all of these different jurisdictions are putting in money into orca recovery, but it's not actually saving the orcas. They're continuing to decline. So they are currently on an endangered species list, and the legislature had a really good conversation at that public hearing about what we should do next in order to try and increase the number from 76 back up to in the hundreds. So the next thing that happened after that public hearing was an executive session, which means that the legislature voted on the bill. That committee, the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, voted to decide that they thought it was a really good bill and that it should be being considered. So it passed out of committee. Everybody voted in favor of it. And you can see on the next line down there, it says majority do pass. That means that the legislators that are in that committee, all of the ones listed on the screen, voted in favor of continuing to move your bill forward, which is really good. So since that happened, the bill was referred to a committee that has to do with money. It's called appropriations. So essentially, all of the legislators that are in charge of deciding how we're going to spend money at the state level sit down and look at bills and decide if they want to have another public hearing to talk about this specific bill in their committee. Now, um, since that happened, I went and I had a meeting with Representative Blake. He's your bill sponsor. And we talked about the committee hearing and how there were a lot of different ideas about how we could increase the salmon populations in Washington state. And what he shared with me is that at the public hearing, there were a lot of people that thought that increasing the amount of money, that $1.5 million, to the salmon recovery effort wasn't going to solve the problem. And that instead, we should look at different hatcheries across the entire state and take a little bit less money and give it to more hatcheries than are listed in your bill. And by doing that, more fish can actually be spawned and put back into the system. So that's the conversation that's continuing to take place. So what I wanted to let you all know is that on this bill page that you have listed in front of you, you're likely going to see this bill stop moving forward in the process. But I want you to know that the conversations are still taking place, and that as the budget conversations take place, so as all the legislators are talking about how we're going to spend money this year at the legislature, they're going to continue to talk about orca recovery. So the next step in the process that you'll see your bill kind of advance is through the budget. So next, when the budget is released from the House and the Senate, you'll see each side talk about how they want to fund orca recovery. And in doing so, you'll get to see your bill move through and get allocated a certain amount of money so that we can continue to work on increasing the amount of salmon that goes towards feeding the whales that then are going to allow them to keep growing and having more babies, and then there will be more and more orcas out in the water. Are there any questions about that? One hand.
Okay, go on up.
So, hi, my name is Ayush, and I would like to ask a question about, if the bill, can the when it's being in the process, could you possibly change one aspect of it to make it, is that more, if some people don't like it right there during the public hearing, can you just change one aspect of it that you think will make them like it more?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. So what the legislators can do is they can do what's called an amendment. And basically that means that you're changing the language, you're rewriting a little bit of the bill, and you're changing one aspect or many aspects depending on how many people want to change the bill. And sometimes that can save it and help it move through the process. The goal here is that somebody brings an idea to the legislature. For instance, they want to make sure that we are saving the orcas and we're increasing the number of orcas that are out in the Puget Sound. And so they come up with an idea, and the bill before you all right now is increasing $1.5 million towards salmon, or to buy salmon, so that we can continue to feed the orcas that are out in the water. And there were some people that came to that public hearing and said, actually, we think that the bill could do more, and we think that we should be putting money into more hatcheries, where and a hatchery is just a facility that helps more salmon populations grow. And so that is one potential amendment that could be made to the bill.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
No questions, really?
So,
Oh, good. We have one more.
we have one more. Okay.
And we're going to use this chair to sit on because the camera is pointed towards this chair. This is Anya.
Has the bill gone past the House floor yet?
It has not. No. So right now the bill has been referred to the Appropriations Committee. And that committee has to do with deciding how we want to spend money in the House. And so right now, the Appropriations Committee is having conversations with your bill sponsor and talking to him about whether or not there's $1.5 million for Orca recovery. And so before the bill even gets to the House floor, it has to go through that Appropriations Committee. But one thing I want to explain is that it's likely that the bill itself is not going to keep moving, but that the idea within your bill is going to keep moving through the process. So the chair of the Appropriations Committee and the chair of the House Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee are friends. And so they sit down and they talk about the bill and they say, well, we're going to stop the bill from moving, but we're still going to talk about the fact that we need to save the orcas. And so what happens next is your bill gets put into a much bigger bill that's called the budget. And so that bill will kind of be condensed and it'll just be a couple sentences that say, we want to put $1.5 million into Orca recovery, and that will be within the big, huge budget bill that's this tall if you print it out. So those conversations are happening. So you likely won't see your bill go and get voted on the House floor, and instead, in a couple weeks, Shelley and I will be able to give you an update about where it's at within the budget. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on up.
My name is Ming, and when is the cutoff date again?
Great question. You guys have good questions. And that was actually the next thing that I was going to talk to you all about. So we have a couple cutoffs coming up here. On the 2nd of February is the first cutoff. So that means that all bills that have to do with policies or changing a law need to be passed out of committee. And then the next cutoff, and I think can they see that? Okay, perfect. So we're going to actually show you where to find it on the website. So on the legislative website, you can go to what's called a cutoff calendar, and it will show you all of the different cutoffs that are taking place. So you can see at the top there that January 8th was the first day of session. And you can see next that February 2nd is the first cutoff. And what that means is that bills that have to do with policies have to be passed out of their committee by that day. So our first cutoff is this week. And then very quickly after, February 6th is our next cutoff, where all of the bills that have to do with fiscal things or money have to pass out of those committees. So for instance, the Appropriations Committee that I talked about would need to pass out any bills in order for them to keep moving through the process this session. And then I think the next time we meet with you all is February 14th, which happens to be the next cutoff day. And that means that all bills have to pass what's called the House of Origin. So and really all that means is that if a bill is a House bill, it has to pass out of the House, off the House floor by that day. And if a bill is a Senate bill that was introduced by a senator, then those Senate bills have to be passed to the Senate floor. And then what happens is they switch. So if your bill were to continue moving, it would go from the policy committee to the fiscal committee to the floor, and then it would switch to the Senate. And then it would get a hearing in the Senate policy committee, so the agricultural related and water related committee over in the Senate, and then the committee that has to do with money and spending of money, and then it goes to the Senate floor. But as I explained, your bill will likely not have to go through that process anymore, and instead it'll be part of the budget conversations that are taking place. And those are going to happen all the way until the end of the session. So if you look down on your screen, you can see that March 2nd is the last day for bills to be considered in total, and then March, if they're not necessary to implement the budget, but since your bill or the conversation around your bill has to do with the budget, we have until March 8th. That's the last day of session. So we will be continuing to talk about your bill and the policy within it all the way until we are done here at the legislature this session. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? We have a few kids just leaving for patrol, so that's why you see the activity in the room.
Sounds
You know, as a class, we were talking about ways that we could support this bill, making other students aware of it, sending an email. But I was wondering, do we send the emails to our representative, like Representative Sen, or do we send them to Blake or?
I would recommend that you send them to Representative Blake. When I sat down with Representative Blake and I told him that I was tracking your guys' bill and that all of your students were participating, he was excited to see that there were young kids that were paying attention to what he's working on here in Olympia. So if you wanted to have your students send emails to him to urge his support, then what that will do is it will encourage him to continue to have conversations with budget leadership about the bill, and that will ultimately help make sure that it's included within the budget that's currently being negotiated.
Okay. All right.
So it's definitely not too late to get involved, and I would recommend speaking to him or emailing him. I mean, and additionally, you can definitely email your state legislators for your area, and then encourage them to talk to Representative Blake, and then he would do the same thing. So it definitely doesn't hurt to reach out to more than one person and continue to encourage them to consider the bill.
Okay, and then could you let the kids know his email really quick?
Yes, so it's his first name, Brian, BRIAN .Blake, BLAKE at ledge, LEG .wa.gov. And I'm actually going to show you all on the page on the website here how you can find that if you are if you're interested in looking this up at home.
Okay.
Just a minute here. So you can see where it says member information on the legislative website. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah.
So do you see where it says House and Senate?
Yeah.
You'll click that, and then you can go on the right-hand column where it says House, the chamber right there, and you'll click on that. And you know that his name is Blake, so you'll scroll down to Brian Blake and you'll click on it. And that tells you a little bit of information about him. So you can click where it says email, and that will give you his email address. Additionally, if you are just curious and you want to learn more about him, or you forget what our bill number is, you can click where it says details, and then click where it says bill sponsorship. And then you click primary sponsor and scroll down. Keep going. He has a lot of bills. Keep going, because this is last year and this year. And then you can see Southern Resident Workers, and you click that, and we are back to our bill page. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you can go to the member roster that we showed you just a minute ago, and that will give you an opportunity to email him through the legislative website. So if you ever have a question about where your bill is at or what's happening in Olympia, that website is really, really good and gives you all the information you need right there. There was one other question, though, that I remember somebody asked last week, and I don't remember if it was Rishi or if it was Brad, but I was asked, what happens when the governor vetoes a bill? Do you guys all remember asking that question? Yeah?
Oh yeah, that was me. That wasn't me.
Was that Rishi?
Was me.
No.
That was me. I asked you. Oh yeah, I knew you asked me.
Okay, well, I have an answer for you guys. So when the governor decides that he does not want a bill at all, so it's a full veto, and it means that he is not going to let it become law, he doesn't actually do anything. There's no big rubber stamp that he sticks on the paper that says veto. He just doesn't put it in, that his staff just does not put the bill in front of him, and he doesn't sign it. He doesn't do anything. But if he doesn't like a couple of parts of the bill, he does what's called a line item veto, which means he takes a big red pen and he strikes out lines within the bill to say, this part of the bill is not going to become law. So he does use a red pen. And then what he does is he has a sticker system. So he places certain stickers on the bill that say what he likes and what he doesn't like. so that when his staff is looking at the bill later and it goes and after he signs it, it's becoming law, they can go in and make those changes based off of what stickers he uses. So that's kind of funny because it's probably similar to what you guys do at school, where you have stickers that explain how you did and where things are at with your homework. Are there any other questions? No? So the next time that Shelly and I talk to you, we'll tell you what has happened with your bill. So at that point, it might not have moved beyond the Appropriations Committee, but we will go and we'll meet with Representative Blake again here after the policy cutoff on February 2nd in a couple days. And we'll talk to him about the budget conversations and say, the Somerset elementary school class really cares about this bill, and that we want to continue to see money going towards Orca recovery. And we'll get a little bit more information about if he's been successful with getting that included in the budget. So we'll have some more information for you at that point. And then Shelly and I also mentioned that there are a couple of other bills that have to do with Orca recovery that are working their way through the process. And after this cutoff, we'll know which one of those bills are still moving forward, so we can tell you a little bit more about those bills, and then we can also update those on your website as well. So we can actually go to your school's website really quick here in a minute, and I'll show you how you guys can look up the information that Shelly and I share with you during our sessions. Give me just a second here. Okay. So we are on what's called the Teach with TVW page, and this is a great way for you guys to see the sessions that Shelly and I have with you all, and show you where what we've done and a little bit more information about your bill. So if you you see at the top of the screen it says Capital Classroom, you'll click on that, and then you'll scroll down all the way until you guys see your school's name. So you'll click Somerset Elementary. And right there on that page is our first session. So do you all see Shelly? So that's the two of us from the first time that we chatted with you, and that's a video that you can watch at home or show your parents so they can learn a little bit about what's happening in Olympia right along with you. And so the next time that Shelly and I meet with you all, we will make sure that we update that page so that you can see where House Bill 2417 is at, as well as some of the other bills. And then if your bill gets incorporated or included in the budget, then we will put the budget bill on there as well. And it'll be a really, really big bill with many, many pages. And we will show you where to find your issue within the big budget bill. Does that sound good?
Does it sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any questions?
Any last minute questions? No? You're pretty quiet today.
They are. There were so many questions last time.
Yeah, there were.
Maybe you answered them all.
Well,
I answered them all.
yeah.
Fair. So raise your hand if you watched the President's State of the Union last night. Ah, there's a couple.
3? Good. Good.
Good. Well, here at the legislature, the Governor Inslee does a state of the state. And he actually already did that. It was a few weeks ago. It was on the second day of session. So he talked about what's happening here in Washington State, the same way that President Trump talked about what's happening at the federal government last night.
Wonderful.
Well, I look forward to chatting with you guys all soon. We're running out of time here. So Shelley and I look forward to telling you what happens to the bill and updating you in just 2 weeks.
Okay, that's great. So we'll see you again on February 14th.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, great. What do we say, kids?
Thank
Yeah. Okay, have a great day. Thank you.